All right, so today I get to fold more repeats of this guy, which I had done as a just test fold demonstrating the diagram, the crease pattern, back in the fall, maybe a bit earlier. And today I'm going to fold more of this pattern. Actually, not just one set of repeats out, but a third as well. And that's going to take a massive grid. I have 80 divisions on this grid. It's a custom rotated grid. You can see these lines are not parallel to the edge. And I'm going to be demonstrating it in this video. So folding at full speed. And I do have an eye on the chat, so feel free to put in questions and I will respond to those. But otherwise, I'll mostly be folding at full speed. Something to know about this pattern is that it's actually in the same tiling as the pattern I taught in last week's tutorial, which means that it has roughly the same sequence of folds. The same shapes are connected in the same order, and so I can have my rings around the center be, okay, we're going to do that double depth hexagon, and then we're going to add the trapezoids and rhombi around it, and then we're going to go and get through half of the next hexagon, and then finish the hexagon, and then add trapezoids and rhombi, and that's the cycle that will repeat for the pattern as a whole. So even though there's flagstone areas of trapezoid twists, this is still a relatively straightforward pattern because it could be much harder. Yeah, so how did I find the center? Excellent question, Chris. There are markings in the edge of the paper from where I set up, you can see that marking, from where I set up the rotated grid. And those grid lines that are hitting the edge at those markings are the ones that are, by definition, going through the center of the paper. So that's how I'm finding my center. And I just need to double check in my crease pattern that, yes, I am supposed to be doing a right-handed hexagon. The pattern would work whether I did it right-handed or left-handed. It would just be a mirror image and therefore not match my grid. And then it's time for those first trapezoids. And by the way, this is not the densest way to arrange them. I was playing around yesterday and you can put them one spacing even closer in. This is actually on a 16 division grid. I went ahead and did this funny thing with the central hexagon because it gets you this zigzag in the backlighting that's spiraling in. So pretty cool. Looks a lot like some of the AI company logos, but we're doing this motif. So actually there's tube pleat spacing everywhere. And still gonna feel pretty dense in the beginning. And so last week, when we did the tumbling blocks weave, all of the twists were on the same side of the paper. This week, every twist on one side is only connected to twists on the opposite side. And there I just roughed in my compound wrap. And welcome, Guillaume. Glad you could join us again. So it looks like a mess up until it all settles down. And this is a kind of pattern that I'm really glad to be working on skytone paper, because working at this scale with some other papers, you would have a real tendency to smear off of the grid lines, especially with these compound wraps and other situations that we've got going on that are really putting some tension into the paper. So there, I need to up that a little bit there. Okay. So yeah, really glad to be working on skytone today, because while this pattern, like, I'm gonna say it's straightforward in that I know exactly what I'm gonna do in each ring around the center, but it is not simple and it is not easy. And so this is a fun challenge for me. Oh, and this is also going to be day 24 of Advent of Tess this year. So that's fun. One of the reasons why I did this little mini series of videos is because it'll be useful if anyone wants to do more repeats of these patterns for Advent of Tess. Which, yes, is in December, and we are here in July, but you can't be too prepared when it comes to folding your grids. And then this guy is going to have a compound wrap on either side. Okay, so that's the central motif. And now I'll come over here and turn all those compound wraps into rhombus twists. This is the last stage where I'll do 6 of something on one side and then 6 of the same on the other. Or 6, where I'll do 6 copies on one side and then 6 copies immediately on the other, because after this we need to work more like in a going around sense. And so you'll need the things on the back to be done to progress further on the front. So there's going to be a lot of flipping the paper back and forth. Yeah, and one thing that's great about this particular pattern, or this tiling in general, really, is that you can space everything further apart. So if you wanted to try this pattern, but the center is a little too crunchy, then you can space it further apart and have your trapezoids start one space away from the hexagon and use all the same other twists, and it'll still work out. But if you do want to do it directly, this is what you get with 32 grid divisions. So it does eat some grid, but it is a very nice pattern. And let's see. I'm gonna put in my triangle twist, and this is going to be a double open triangle twist. And I'm doing this more for seeing where things have to go than as a overall, like, this is the easiest thing to put next recommendation, because it has pleat overlaps, one of which I'm turning into a compound wrap on both sides. So it's not really an ideal starting point for the pattern as a whole. And then I'll continue with this one. Well, can I get away with the wrap and not add new pleats is the question. The answer is no. And so this will be a copy of that guy because the rhombus is in a position of two-fold rotational symmetry. And so the other thing I can say is the middle pleat, middle single depth plate of the trapezoids goes to the triangle, just like it did in the tumbling block sweave pattern. That's a characteristic of the tiling. And voila. I can say this one is exactly flipped around from this one, or I can say it's the same as the one opposite it on the hexagon. And let's see, I should be able to, yeah, that's a nice clean way to leave this edge. Nice, nice. All right, so that is going to be a rhombus, but I'm going to leave it for the next ring around because we're only going halfway through the hexagon on this ring around. And so, which pleats do I want to start with? These are looking promising. The option is go this way or go this way. And I think that this way will be nicer. Mostly because this is sticking further out than that guy. So I can set up my next trapezoid to sit in there. And then set up my triangle and rearrange things in here to do a wrap. And this double depth overlap can turn into 2 pleats going into a hexagon. And when I put in the next trapezoid, I have that triangle wrap that's going to be a rhombus later. Okay, so that's my sequence. And I'm just gonna repeat that. And we'll see later on that some of the hexagons that we encounter will have 3 pleats going into them right off the bat. But that's a further rings out problem. And it's not really a problem because the half hexagon tube is a nice tool that we have at our disposal. So one of the things I like to do when I'm folding at full speed and I've seen the repeat is listen to some music. I've got my headphones on so I can listen and not worry about any potential copyright violations. So I'm going to be listening to the Reading Adventure playlist that you can find on Spotify. And feel free to keep typing stuff in the chat. I'm always happy to respond. And here, because I'm at the end of the ring around the center, I'm going to do something slightly different. And let's see, I'll do a double depth compound wrap. And then okay. And then to start the next ring around, I'm going to work on a set of parallel pleats. And it's funny, like right now it looks like there's only 3 pleats, but there's 5 pleat depths total. So 2 here, 1, and 2. And so that's what the tiling cares about, is how many pleat depths are traversing, the total shrinkage across the pleats. And I'm gonna start on this end, this lower end, because it's sticking out further than this end. Start by adding 1 more pleat to my hexagon. And this pleat is double depth, so we're doing 2 layers in tiling space. And this is a fun move. Putting in a new trapezoid, and I'm going into this area where I already have a triangle wrap, and I'm doing another triangle wrap over that. And then when I flip over, this is a shift 1 pleat over, and it becomes a rhombus situation. Usually it's shift 1 pleat over and it becomes an open triangle. But no, this time it becomes a rhombus. It was sitting there as a half hexagon tube. And next thing is the next trapezoid. And I'll help that feed into the half hexagon. Maybe I could have done that triangle first, because that's also feeding into things. We'll see on the next side. And then for this one, I'm actually going to finish the hexagon, because if I add one more pleat, it's functionally the same as adding all the rest of them too. And make sure to twist it all the way around. And put this pleat under, because when I work my way around again, I'm going to need to do something with the pleat from the trapezoid first. And then we cycle. I'll play my music again. And yeah, I said last time I'd look at, should I do this triangle first, but the pleat from the hexagon is really in the way. So this time, I'm actually gonna set up the pleat from the hexagon first, because that was the hard part. And then that's not laying down super cleanly, but I can poke stuff over here. And now it is. Oh, and I think earlier I had said that this was a half hexagon tube. It's actually equivalent of 2 pleats going into a hexagon. And then that's popping out a rhombus. Actually, I can go ahead and find my triangle wrap while I'm over here. That should help sharpen things up. Yeah. There, I intentionally tucked the pleat in advance. So you can see as I go, I'm refining exactly how I'm folding the pattern. Getting more efficient with each repeat. Definitely folding these trapezoids more efficiently now in this particular position. There's no flipping back and forth, and if I'm doing the triangle wrap before I get to the trapezoid side, then it's very easy to find that final pleat. Hi, Early. Welcome to the party. Yeah, it's not an easy one, but it is quite fun. Um, and there's so many ways to make variations of this pattern. I've actually folded a couple already. Maybe I'll get them out the top of the hour. And really, one of the interesting things is the variations are using the same moves as this base pattern. So that makes it a lot easier to get used to the folding style. Like, yeah, the Corona's variations are definitely not easy. These serrated variations, oh yeah, I'm just doing the half X one. Serrated variations are relatively straightforward if you can count like flagstone patterns or flagstone motifs of trapezoids as relatively straightforward. But actually, heck, I'll go ahead and show you. Serrated and coronas are not the hardest patterns to fold in Advent of Tess this year. That would go to some of the other things that have nice coincidences of trapezoids. So serrated here is actually a break from collision zones that I was folding earlier this morning. Well, and last night. So there are harder things out there. And the great part about serrated is that there are true tiling breaks everywhere in the pattern. So if you ever want to do a practice piece first, you can always space it further apart. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. You did reverse engineer coronas. Yeah, it's a fun one. Okay, so now I'm getting around to the end of this ring around the center, and I have to do something. Well, it looks like I have to do something slightly different, but really what I'm going to do is pretend that this pleat is not there and just do exactly the same thing I was going to do anyways. And then I can finish the hexagon once things are calmer around it. And that concludes that ring around the center. I'll at least do one more ring on this video. Let's see, set of parallel pleats. This is the side I want to start on because that's further out than this. And it's going to be trapezoid. So this will be a quick ring around the center, just trapezoids and rhombi. And it'll complete these motifs and throw in a trapezoid for the next motif. This compound wrap is a single depth plate over a double depth plate, so it looks a little different. Actually, no, it's a triangle wrap over a single depth over a double depth. So I'm still running the valley down until it hits the valley below, and then it splits. But there's still another grid unit worth of shrinkage on the double depth plate that doesn't get taken up into the triangle wrap. And I could start with the rhombus, but I have a better read on where this trapezoid needs to go. It's going to be compound wraps either way. Or pleat overlap, frankly, but why not? And there I used the rule that the middle single depth pleat is the one going to the triangle. So I knew the third had to go this way instead of this way. This is the part where any inaccuracy in your grid will get you, because you need to fold this pleat directly over the next pleat. And with me folding with 80 grid divisions, I had to do a division of 5 at some point. But I only need it to be super precise right where I'm folding the twist. For a pattern with flagstone motifs, there's relatively few times when the pleats are all crunched up on top of each other and serrated. Ooh. Yeah, nebulae is a nice one. That's a hex trie rom trie with extended symmetry, if I remember correctly. Which reminds me, like, it's a ton of fun seeing, like, things that I make and then publish, and then people fold with more repeats than I have. And probably with 64 on Nebula, you'll be hitting more repeats than I've done. I think I only did that on like a 32 or 48. I could be mixing up my patterns though. So when I was originally planning out like all the alternate endings for Advent of Tess, which is like going on 50 patterns, I, well, actually more like 30 that I had to fold this year. I was thinking like, oh, I should limit how many grid divisions I use for each one. And then as the time got closer to folding serrated, I was like, I really, really want to see this with more than just the first ring of repeats around the center. And that's how I ended up folding this on 80 grid divisions, even when most of the Advent of Tess alternate endings, I'm limiting myself to 64. So it does mean that I'm not getting through it all right now. But these things do take more than an hour. What I will do right now is get through this ring around the center. I have these 2 sets of parallel plates to work through yet. And then I'll show you some of the other things that you can fold with this same motif in different tilings. Yeah, I do use a bigger size of Skytone early than the 12.5 by 19 inch that I sell on my store at gatheringfolds.com. I have a bigger template, and you can get single sheets that are 25 by 38, or yeah, 25 by 38 inches from the manufacturer, and then I chop those up into bigger sizes. This size isn't that great for cutting from those larger sheets. I think you only get like 2 of them out of the larger sheet, but then you get a bunch of other smaller sizes too. Yeah. So there are bigger sheets of Skytone, and I use those bigger sheets for the super duper large hexagons that I've been using for the open hexagon closed triangle series. But in general, anything, and lately I've done some patterns with 72 divisions on the standard hexagon from the 12.5 by 19-inch sheet. But I think 80 on those would be excessive. And usually I would use butcher paper for this size, but I don't like how it photographs as well as Skytone, and it's a softer paper, so it doesn't hold up to this level of folding as well as the Skytone. So there's these repeats of serrated, and I'm going to grab some other things I've folded lately to show. Yeah, I missed a couple comments there, and like it is 80 divisions for this guy. I did 64 on a diagonal grid for this guy. And let me see where the other one is. Looks like 64 for this one as well. So there's all kinds of like fun little stuff that you can throw in between your repeats in these patterns. And it's all that same central motif. So these three will all be in the 2025 Advent of Tess ebook. And they're also going in Tessellation Garden pretty soon. Like I have this whole stack of finished patterns and a whole bunch of others that are just demo scale that are going in Tessellation Garden pretty soon. Well, thank you, Yam. So yeah, I'm gonna call it there for today. The next steps around are going to be very similar to what you saw with me getting from this repeat through this one. I would add in more trapezoids and triangles and rhombi and up to half of the hexagon. And then I would finish the hexagon, adding more, and then I would finish off with a ring of trapezoids and rhombi. So that is all for today. We've got beautiful patterns on both sides of the paper, and very mysterious looking if you don't know what's going on with the double depth hexagon twists. So happy folding, everyone. Maybe you try it for yourself. And this one actually is already in Tessellation Garden because it went in once I did the demo. So you can get the rotation for the edge off of that. So happy folding, and see you next time. Next time I'll be talking about how to pick a tessellation at the right level for you to fold, which is definitely a big problem that I see out there when people are trying to learn tessellations, always jumping to things that are really pretty, but also super complicated. So this will be a good way for you to see, like, okay, where is my skill level right now and what is one step harder? So see y'all next time.